Human beings love to make things complicated. It's so complex that people can't implement. 95% of people watching this video may not implement because of these factors. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what you can do as a trainer, speaker, and facilitator. You can change people's life by making this step, by implementing this step, which I'm going to talk about in this video. But before I do that, as usual, I would like you to do me a favor. Click the subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel before, do it so that these videos and other videos can be spread out to a wider reach of audiences, and that will help me a lot. And for that, thank you. At the same time, hit the bell and get notified so that you know, as well as I do, you will get notification of every single video that I've uploaded on the channel. Would that be okay? Thank you very much. Now, here's the thing. I've just said at the very beginning, human being loves to make things complicated. I don't know why, because it's that the society's impact, whereby people love to get things from not just 1 plus 1. They like to think deep. They like to make things complex. One theory that I have, I don't know how to prove that, is ego. I'll just put it as an ego. There's actually something bigger than that. But when I just talk about ego, all I mean is that to make them feel good, you know what, I can actually talk about complex things. I want to show off my expertise, because especially for those of you who are training expert subject, like for myself, tax, which is a very complex subject to many people. A lot of you actually will freak out if I'm opening my mouth and talk about the tax law. I've learned many years ago that this is not good enough. The reason why it's not good enough is that if you are making points that are confusing, you are actually doing a disservice to your audiences and participants, because they will not understand what you have done. You want them to implement, you want them to take action, they will never be able to do that. So I learned it a long time ago in my tax training. First of all, I've got to lower myself. I'm not going to be the expert. All I'm saying is that I just happen to start this journey earlier than most of you. You see, I first of all reframe, and therefore I happen to know a bit more. So all I'm going to do is to use my words to explain, to help you understand what I'm about to say. Most importantly, if at any point in time you still don't really understand, raise your hand, and you know what, I will do my best to answer, and will not move forward until everybody is on the same page. My philosophy is that leave no man behind. We are either going together or stop until everybody is clear. You may want to actually pause the recording and then rewind this particular bit. This is a very common phrase that I set the context to help them understand that, okay, it's not stupid to ask a question, although it might be stupid because other people told me not to ask any stupid question. But Jack actually set this up front, no problem to ask. And let's see whether I can really understand, because he said it's going to make us understand. So of course, when you said that you will make them understand, you've got to do your work to make them understand. So when you are teaching topics that are very, we call it complex, there's one way I want you to do, that is called using stories, using metaphors to talk about a concept. So I'm going to demonstrate one on the subject of tax deduction. Now this is something that perhaps you don't know, like how to explain tax deduction. So I'll give you a version 1 first. Version 1 for Singapore tax purposes under section 15(1) of the Income Tax Act. It says that other than anything that is specified in this section is not deductible. Then we go to the section 15(1) with the slide there, and you can see all the subsections. And people will scratch their head and say, what the heck are you talking about? They can't, because when you show all the technical stuff, you must understand what's the background of the people in the room. If you are a lawyer, you will understand what I'm talking about, because this is the legal training. This is the way to train lawyers. Show them the session, show them the law, and they will know how to read the law. But imagine your room, they will not have lawyers, and these people haven't gone for any legal training as such. Then what are you going to do? So then you've got to tell them the stories. So this is my story. First of all, in Singapore, in order to get a tax deduction, which is to lower your income to be taxable, lower your tax liability paying to the Singapore Tax Authority. You notice that I didn't say IRAS, I say Singapore Tax Authorities, because my audiences may not be from Singapore. If you mention IRAS, the Americans would think that you're talking to IRS, but in Singapore it's IRAS, IRAS. So we love to use Singapore Tax Authority, the US Tax Authority instead. So this is a way to lower yourself down. And then the second thing to take note is that while in Singapore there are two things you need to know about tax deduction. Number one, there are certain things that you are not allowed to claim. So let me give you a few examples. In Singapore, the biggest problem is that most people thought that when they are investing in a private car that is used for business purposes, any petrol cost, any running expenses of the private car can qualify for deduction, because in their mind they think that it is business deduction. But in Singapore, the funny thing is that private car expense is not deductible regardless of whether it is deductible, it is for business purposes or not. So you see, instead of mentioning section 15(1)(g) word for word, I'm just giving you the explanation. Does that make sense? So now your job is to explain using stories, using metaphors, or even in your own words, so that people can understand what you're talking about. So I'll give you another example. So the second thing about tax deduction is that if you can't find the expense that's not allowed under the law, you see I don't mention Income Tax Act, I say under the law. So people will not feel offended or Income Tax Act. I have never read the act before. Alright? So all I'm saying is that while you've got to ask yourself this question, is what you incur really for business purposes? So let me give you an example here. So I always love to use the marker story. So there was a time I was a trainer, and as trainer, as you know, I need to use marker because I love to use flip chart to teach. So I like to draw, and during non-training times, non-business time, I like to practice something, and I love to practice drawing a character. So this is what I draw. So let me just pick out something. Okay, again, it's very impromptu. So I just draw. I just happen to draw. So you just wait for me. So I haven't been drawing this for a long time. So maybe it's not very effective. So what is this? So I can just draw it pretty quickly because I did like 2008 time or 2010. Angry Bird is very, very popular. So I took a few characters and I really literally practiced drawing them. So right now I can only draw the reds because I didn't practice long enough. But I haven't practiced for a while. So the red is there. If I have other colors, marker colors, I can actually draw it in a better way. So I said I love to actually draw the red. And how many of you actually know this guy? He's the chief character in Angry Bird. What's his name, by the way? Some people say Red. Yes, this is the Red. How many of you love him? How many of you hate him? How many of you, when you see him, you feel very angry? So you can actually make a joke. See, the way you teach can be very entertaining in that sense. So the question is this: if I were to spend $1 to buy this marker, and let's suppose I've got 20% of the time I used to learn how to draw Angry Bird as a hobby, and 80% of the time I'm using the marker to run my training business as a trainer. How many of you believe that when I spend $1, I can get $1 deduction from Singapore Tax Authority? So then some hands will go up, some hands will say no. So how about 80% of the dollar? Some hands goes up. Okay. Some hands, how many of you actually are not sure? Some hand goes up. Okay, good. So I got different responses. Then I explain. So for those who are not sure, good. This is why you are here. For those who are thinking 80%, that will work in Australia because Australian tax law has a partial deduction of this amount based on the amount of business percentage or proportion. So see, I actually make a comparison between Singapore law and the Australian law. But in Singapore, it's either all or nothing. And I said that while this is the same principle we have in the UK, because in UK, the principle is either all or nothing. So therefore, if you cannot prove that your $1 incurred is only for business purposes, there's a private element, the whole dollar is not deductible. See, that's the way to explain the concept of wholly and exclusively in the production of income, which is the technical jargon in tax law. So how many of you notice that at all time I'm just sharing with you in the Angry Bird story, very layman language? Because now I'm speaking English. And therefore, if you can lower yourself and speak to the layman common languages that they can understand, you are now not an expert. You are now really a teacher. Because what happens as a teacher is this: your job is to simplify the process, to help them understand when they learn something, they can do it. This is the key. In order for them to take action, you have to tell them something that is easy so that they can implement at least the first step. If you give them the whole box, it's so complicated, they see, oh my God, I see the box but I can't do anything. I'm frozen. I'm stoned. I can't move. Because when you make this hard, they will not take the action. How many of you are like this before? When your trainer gives you lots of complex problems to solve, you just don't know how to do it. Why? Because your job is not to make things hard, make things complex. Instead, you are making things easy. In their mind, in order for them to take action, the next two things you need to think about, or you need to convince them, is that it works. Because one of the objections they have is that, wow, it's easy, but really, does it work or not? If it doesn't work, then why am I doing this? I want to actually I want you to show me that it works for you and for other people, then I will do it. Instantly, when I'm actually using this mic, for example, this smart mic, the thing is that I did a review on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook. And 4 of the viewers who are my friends on Facebook actually bought this smart mic. And the reason that I can tell you why is because people will not take action. I think most people will not take action until they have seen some other people they know who have taken action and it works. And then they have confidence in making that decision. So for you, when you are when you're trying to convince your students to take action, you've got to show proof that it works. What you're teaching is not just simple, it actually works. Because when they see other people make it, then their voice might say, okay, let me test it out. Because I've seen other people successful also. When you have more proof to confirm that what you're teaching actually works, then it's a very good persuasion tool to help people understand that while they are able to take action and create results for them. So it's not only just easy, you've got to prove that it works. Because now, in the last thing that they're asking themselves is that, so if it works for them, it will work for me. If they can do it, I can do it. So I want to summarize these 3 questions when you design any program. When you design a program that you impart your knowledge to your audiences, your audiences will always have these 3 things to think about. Number 1 is that easy? Because if it is complex, they will not listen to you, let alone implementation. The second thing is that, does that work? So you have to show proof that this is not just working for you. You have to prove that it works for your other students. And then the last thing is that, can I do it? Is their own voice. If it works for the other students of yours, then I think that you can work for me. So let me test it out. So is that easy? Does that work? Can I do it? So when you create your program, when you impart your teaching points to your students, your participants, or your audiences, you always have to come back to these 3 fundamental principles. Once again, is that easy? Does that work? Can I do it? So I learned these 3 concepts from Joe Bauer, who actually learned from his mentor Mary Kay Ash. So this is the 3 guiding principles in your program design and your teaching that will help you impact, influence, inspire people in your room to take action. to move forward to create results. Okay, so I hope that you find this video, the teaching, useful. I hope that you just implement next time in your preview, your presentation, these ideas. Is that easy? Does that work? Can I do it? And let me know whether you have created some results that you haven't created before. So therefore, it confirms that what I'm sharing with you works. Would that be cool? Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. And as usual, if you have other questions about speaking, training, and facilitation, comment below so that I may consider answering your questions in the form of future videos. Once again, thank you for watching this video. Jack Wong here. All good wishes.